Yes, it is DJ Ski from Dash Radio, and you are now listening to the #1 South Asian radio station in the world. I'm talking about Ruckus Avenue Radio, Dash Radio's exclusive South Asian station. Let's go.
Hi everyone, welcome to The Brighter Side of News. I'm Rizwan Manji. I'll be your host today. Joining me will be Ismail Bashi, Joseph Shavit, Sanjay Chandani, and Tony Von Hala. Let's get started. Hi again, everyone. This is Rizwan. I have with me Robert Stone and Ismail Bashi, and we have a segment called Ethically Ambiguous, which you guys may have heard in one of our previous shows. And Robert has a story he wants to talk about, and then we're going to discuss, right, Robert?
Yes, that is correct. Thank you, Rizwan. So I wanted to just bring up the time that Rizwan and I were at an outdoor mall with our families, and we bought our kids ice cream. And then
this was pre-COVID, just everybody.
Oh, here we go with the virtue signaling.
Virtue signaling, pre-COVID.
So we bought our kids ice cream, and then they were all sitting nicely. And the oldest one was almost 12 at the time, and I feel like age is important to say there because that will come up in a minute.
We don't call them old anymore. We call them chronologically advanced.
Yes. So we told our kids, hey, we want to go get some coffee a couple of doors down. We'll be right back. And the kids are like, great, we're finding ice cream. So we walked over to the coffee shop, Coffee Bean, Rizwan, his wife, my wife, and myself. And then we came back 10 minutes later, and a security guard was questioning our kids, saying, where are your parents? What's going on? And I just want to ask Rizwan, what do you think about that? And at what age is it okay to leave your kids by themselves in public?
So I was there and we clearly discussed this at the time, but just to reiterate, so my daughter was probably the oldest, or your daughter, and they were almost 12, as you said. And there was two basically 12-year-olds, two like a 9-year-old, and my youngest daughter who's 7. So there was 5 of them. They were eating ice cream together, and we left for maybe 20 minutes to go get coffee. And the security guard, just to be fair, was very nice, just concerned about where our kids were. It wasn't like a confrontational thing, but we did talk about it afterwards. And I said, I wonder if we did anything wrong. I wonder if we shouldn't have left them. And is like 12 the right age? And they were almost there. Or is 13 the right age? And then I talked to some friends, present company included, about, also when can you let them like walk to the park by themselves or walk to the mall by themselves or any of that stuff? Because when I was growing up, I did that in like elementary school. We walked to school by ourselves. Like we didn't get dropped. My parents, I don't think, ever drove me to school. I walked there every day. So I just don't know. I mean, it's a different world, I guess. And I guess I don't have an answer. Ismail, you weren't there. So what's your feeling about that?
Well, I walked to school every day myself too. And I think initially when I was very young, maybe kindergarten, we used to have a nanny walk with us, or back in India. But I think, I don't know, 2nd, 3rd grade onwards, we used to and school was not too far away, and it was different times. I just think that we have become overly cautious these days. Maybe we have so much information at hand that, of things that happen, especially to kids. But there are a couple of things to consider here. A, if it's legal or illegal. And I mean, and maybe we're not even factoring that, or maybe, it's not important, but I guess it is. So is there like a legal age that you cannot leave your kids by themselves? Is there something
in
written?
California, there is actually there is no age. It's supposed to be there, but that's also ambiguous, right? Because they say it has to be a responsible a responsible age. Like there's no actual age, but like you're supposed to determine whether that your kid is responsible enough, which is ambiguous because I don't know.
Well, because every child is different.
That's right. That's right.
Every child is different at different levels of maturity and intelligence, and so that's kind of a tough decision to.
Some states do have ages.
You're saying California does not.
California, as the last time I checked, doesn't.
Okay.
And viewers, listeners are, if they know anything else, are welcome to hit us up.
Correct you.
Correct me. I know in Canada, there's a course that a 13-year-old can take. They take a course. I don't know if it's online or whatever, but then they can also be left home alone with and have their sibling, like they can babysit their sibling or be a babysitter for somebody else's child, but you have to take a course. And then, so there is something official. I don't know if we have anything official here in the States.
Yeah.
But again, I guess it's whether or not we felt okay. And for us at that time, me and Robert and our wives, we thought they were okay. It's sort of like it's like an outdoor indoor mall. You know what I mean? So
how long were you gone for?
20 minutes. And we just
thought, I thought it was 10, but you think it was 20? Was it?
I think it was about
coffee
20 minutes.
Okay.
No,
okay.
I don't know.
Well, in all fairness, I have to be honest, and I'm, probably the most lenient amongst you guys. I'll happily leave my kids home alone by themselves, but I have not left them by themselves in an outdoor situation. Not to the best of my knowledge, even for like. I'm trying to recall and see that if when we went to say the Grove or somewhere, and did I leave them?
That's the type of place the Village is. It's like an enclosed place, you know what I mean?
Right. And I don't think I have. And it's not because sorry.
Didn't we do that? Or maybe that was Rizwan's family. We were on a big group and the kids just went off.
It was at the mall. We also went to the mall and we let them, we let them go to, I'm pretty sure kids were there. They all went walking to what is that, Miniso? They went to Miniso.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're right. Right? It was in the mall, and we let them go down to a store by themselves because they actually wanted to try that experience of being alone and walking by themselves. Yeah.
And the other thing is they had a phone, right? We left a phone with them. And so they had a phone, they could call us. And we were literally like, not even like, we were like 5 stores down. You know what I mean? So,
well, I guess the answer is that it all depends on, your kids and you as an adult. If you make the right call and if you think that your child is responsible enough to, take care of themselves and not, know the difference and, know when stranger danger. If someone looks like Robert, you run the opposite way. So
there is also this opposite thing because there is this level of independence that we had, right? Like, because growing up, walking to school by yourself and going to the park by yourself and we learned a level of independence, and I worry that our kids are just never gonna get that.
Yeah, but here's my thing. I think we are all in a way guilty of that because whether we like to admit it or not, don't we all now in some way are referred to as helicopter parents? Because even though we hate that term sometimes, like, oh, no, I'm not a helicopter parent. No. But we all like to supervise and micromanage our kids' lives. And even though we may not acknowledge that, we may be saying that, oh, no, I don't do that. I think it's more common with this generation of parents who are so wanting to be in every aspect of their children. I don't know if that's really a good thing because, you got to let kids make mistakes. You got to let them learn. And this is a parenting thing, which I always have conversations, even with my spouse. And, there are certain things that I feel that if we make their life so easy for them, they're going to have a much harder time when they're older.
Oh, yeah.
We have to let them fail at things so that they can learn from that experience and they know how to correct and, have the right response or know how to conflict resolution. If we keep interfering and resolving conflicts for them all the time, then they're just going to be used to that, even when they grow up. A good example is, I was going to say, look at Joseph, but
well, there's a new thing beyond helicopter parenting, which is, I think it's called lawnmower parenting or snowplow parenting.
Okay, these are terms I've never heard of. I'm pretty sure you're just making them up right now. Snowplow parenting and
Snowplow
lawnmower
What do you
parenting.
mean?
Okay.
You've never heard of that?
No. Okay. And can you just tell us what that means?
So lawnmower parenting. Oh yeah, it's also referred as snowplow parenting or
Yes.
bulldozer parenting, according to online. It's when parents have a strong desire to protect their child from any type of struggle or obstacle. As a result, they set to mow over any problem their child faces, as well as prevent problems from occurring in the first place. You're clearing anything in the way.
You're making the path clearer for them.
Yes.
That is a terrible idea.
To their detriment. Yes.
That I think is a terrible idea because I think children need to learn how to resolve conflicts on their own. That's part of that developmental stage that they need to figure things out. It's a learning process. And I don't
also,
know.
well, to go back to your initial thing, well, that's what happened, right? Like the security guard came, nobody freaked out. They talked to the security. When we got there, they were in the midst of a conversation and he was asking them, whatever questions. And they were they just solved the issue. They weren't like freaking out and calling us and, oh no, and this is what happened. So in a way, they were able to solve the issue on their own, which I guess is, is good. I also worry now with COVID, like that part of the not being around your parents all the time was such a big part of growing up, right? Like trick or treating, or again, we went to the movies when I was like 13, 14, we'd go with my friends to the movies alone. I don't think that we've already stopped doing that. And now with the whole COVID situation and getting back into that, I'm worried about the social aspect.
But don't you think that, personally, do you feel that you are not so involved in your kids' life? Like in a way, do you allow them that freedom to grow?
We don't, because it's not socially acceptable. It's not.
No, I don't mean COVID. I don't mean during these times. I mean, even
that. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think I would let my 12-year-old go with her friends to the mall right now. But
we've talked about this because, see, for example, and I'll give you a very simple example. Like, my kids go for a lot of sleepovers. You said that your kids aren't allowed to have go for sleepovers.
It's not that they're not allowed to do it. We just don't.
What's the reason for that? What is the?
We just personally, we don't think that they're ready. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's
what makes someone ready for a sleepover.
Well, that's our feeling about it, right? Like we don't want to put them in a situation where at like midnight they're calling us and being like, "Hey, come, we're."
But isn't that part of conflict resolution?
That's right.
Aren't you now mowing the lawn for them?
And there will be, but we're just not ready. They're not ready yet.
But you are not ready.
Yeah, it's possible that we're also not ready yet.
Okay. And one last thing before, do you think that because Robert was there at that mall?
Yeah.
But if he wasn't there, how soon before you call that security guard a racist?
Probably very quickly.
In the first 30 seconds?
The security guard wasn't white. So I wasn't.
You would still call him a racist. You would call an Indian guy a racist.
Probably. It's interesting to know what would have it's interesting to know that as well. What would have happened if there wasn't two white kids there? You know what I mean? Like, what would that have been?
Yeah.
Right. Like it is a different perspective when there's just three Indian kids sitting by themselves and their parents look like they abandoned them. But yeah, I don't know.
It is. It really is. And, and everybody has a different way of looking at things, because I remember when my kids were younger, we had the reverse problem. When people would see Bethany with sometimes with Lila, when Lila was very young, they would think Bethany was her nanny.
Yeah.
They wouldn't think that she was the mom, because they would think this kid is, they're mixed, kids, and Bethany is very, redhead, and, so they would think, oh, I wonder if that is her child. And, they would always approach from that line of questioning, like, oh, do you work for this family or something like that, which I thought was interesting.
Wow.
Anyway.
Well, thank you guys. I enjoyed having your input on this conversation.
Have you learned anything?
With you guys, I never learned anything.
I was like, usually with every segment, there's no resolution or answers to any questions,
which is life.
Just more confusion. So
no, but seriously, you guys brought up some really good points. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening.
Hi, this is Gurran from Being Bramp. Listen to Ruckus Avenue Radio at dashradio.com and download the Dash Radio app for complete access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to our station.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to The Brighter Side of News. I'm Rizwan Manji. I have with me Joseph Shavit and Sanjay Chandani. And we have this segment called The Brighter Side of News. Our friend here, Joseph, has a website that he runs with his son called The Brighter Side of News. They also send out a email list every morning that talks about the good stuff that's happening in the world, and we all need to hear about that. And I'll let Joseph introduce what he wants to talk about that sort of, has been happening, good stuff that's been happening in the world. Joseph?
Thanks, Riz. Thanks, Sanjay. Yeah, so at the Brighter Side of News, and those who have listened to our first episode know the background on the Brighter Side of News. One of the areas of featured news that we share with our readers is celebrity news. And as we were talking in prep for this show, it felt like it fit to be able to start talking about some of the celebrity philanthropy, good giving that they do, just some of the celebrity kindness that's out there that we've shared with our readers. And I think it kind of pertains to what we do here and some of the conversations that we've had. And so, I like to break it up because we cover so much on the Brighter Side of News. There's actually really three kinds of celebrity giving, if you will. There's celebrity philanthropy, which is really the big stuff. You got guys like Jack Dorsey from Twitter giving up $2.5 million for Africa response. You got Jeff Bezos giving $10 billion in an Earth fund. You got Elon Musk giving $100 million for a carbon removal prize. So you got some really big good that comes out to the world. That's sort of one family. The second family is sort of in the middle of that area where we kind of call it celebrity good or celebrity giving. And in that area, you've got, smaller, donations, but big to big charities and to big organizations. So, you may have The Weeknd, for example, giving $1 million recently to Ethiopian relief, or Spielberg donating over $2 million for racial and economic justice. So you got that second sort of category. The third category is actually the one that I wanted to spend most of the time talking to you guys about. And that's really just celebrity kindness. Things that celebrities do that hits the press, that we promote, that other major news outlets will promote, that I think we as a society and certainly as our listenership could kind of learn from, but also to bring up and bring back to, some previous conversations we've had about virtue and what that means. And so let me give you some kind of examples. Recently we ran a story about Shaq, who was in a jewelry store and an individual was in there buying an engagement ring for his wife and was clearly having a little bit of difficulty either paying for it or finding, the right ring. And so Shaq stepped up and did a really nice, kind thing and offered and did end up paying for the ring for this individual. Other examples, Taylor Swift has been in the news a lot recently, giving, notes to nurses during the COVID period. She donated $50,000 to a mom of 5 who lost somebody during COVID. Another story, she donated $13,000 to struggling moms during this time. So she's done and stepped up a lot with certain little kindness things. And then you have other, and it runs the gamut, everything from Stephen Curry giving away sneakers to charity, to Jimmy Kimmel being in videos for individuals who are raising money, et cetera. So you've got these little ones. And as I was listening to those and, reading through them and listening to Josh as we were kind of talking back and forth and deciding, are these good or are they not? What came up to me to kind of bring up in this conversation was, at what point is the perception of these kind efforts shifting towards maybe virtue signaling or PR? And I'll give you a specific example, not singling her out because she does amazing work, but over the last 5 months, pretty much on a schedule of almost every month, there's a story about Taylor Swift doing something really kind. And it's because she's really a kind person. I fundamentally believe that. But at what point does it tip to, well, wait a minute, maybe this becomes news and noteworthy? Should we forget that during this time she was releasing a major album that was going on with, that she had recorded when she first started into music and had lost the rights to and is now re-recording it? So at what point is this PR and virtue signaling versus just strict kindness, or does it matter? So, I thought that would be a great conversation to have, to find out what you guys thought and then bring it back around to sort of what Josh and I thought at the end.
Sanjay?
Yeah, no, you were talking about the Atlanta story with Shaq doing the ring. I also read that same time there was a restaurant that he loves in Atlanta that was struggling. So he gave them a $35,000 donation just so that they could, because of the COVID thing, gave them so they could survive the restaurant, survive this hard time. So that was a really honest thing. As far as Taylor Swift, I'm sure there is some of that, and that the PR machine is in that. But did some fan that she gave that money to, did they go to the press? Is that what brought it to light, or was it strictly the PR? We don't know, right?
That's absolutely true. Yeah, there's nothing that in any of the stories that define sort of who brought it to the press. So maybe that's one of the factors to think about in terms of, is it more of a PR machine sort of thing, or is it more just kindness?
I think we touched on this last one of the last episodes. Me and Ismail talked about virtue signaling, and I'm still at that point where I don't think it matters. If somebody is benefiting out of it, if somebody is actually, at the end of the day, did these people benefit? So what if she was trying to, she has an album to release, and she needs press. And if the way she's going to get press is by helping people, well then, as long as people are benefiting from it, I don't want to stop people from helping people just because it's going to look like they're trying to get press. Look, we want people to benefit. We want there to be good in the world. And I think she's trying to throw good out there in the world. And why should we stop that? And maybe she's trying to sell her album. Great. Sell her album as well. She'll make more money, and hopefully she'll donate more money and give more people some good that they need in the world.
And I agree with Riz on that. In fairness to Taylor Swift, she's been doing this for a long time. It wasn't just this, my album's coming out, that it's happening now, but she did it. I remember stories. I don't know the specifics, but a year ago, 2 years ago, she was just always willing to give the money out. I think when her rights also went away from when she was fighting for the rights or something, she donated at that point as well. So I don't think it's virtue signaling. I agree. If it's helping somebody, more power to it. And maybe it'll give other people who don't know it, to support, to go out and do these acts on a smaller level.
Yeah, and that's an interesting segue into sort of the way we were thinking about it. And the reason so I'm encouraged to hear that you guys are sort of on the same page. We looked at it from the standpoint, and I use this analogy a lot when I describe it. We look at it from the standpoint of, if you're standing out in the rain and somebody walks up to you and gives you an umbrella, and you open it up, and on the umbrella, it says A&B umbrella store, half off. Do you really care if it's keeping the rain off of you? Really, is it a bad thing that it's there? And we looked at it and we said, at the end of the day, some people could look at this as virtue signaling, and they could look at it as PR. I'm sure there are lots of other examples, most of which never saw the light of day on the brighter side, of celebrities that had something bad happen to them, and then 5 minutes later, their PR machine is on, and next thing you know, they've donated something to someone to just try and get that good mojo out there in the market when people think of bad things. But when I think of Taylor Swift, and I think of all of these celebrities, Lady Gaga, et cetera, they're doing such good. At the end of the day, does that even matter? Does the PR that they get matter? Or is it more important that the good gets done and that people see that kindness? And that's where we came to, and why we publish those kind of stories when we do it, is because you're right. It is absolutely the kindness. And I would rather see 1 million celebrities go the route of doing everyday kindness things to their fans and to people they meet in the street, and have that be promoted, than to hear in the news 50 different stories of all the bad things that are happening in the world. Yes, it may be self-serving in some component to the celebrities, but the overarching message of doing good for everyone and the positive spin of the news is absolutely better than caring about who gets a betterment out of it.
I don't know if you guys remember. I mean, I'm sure you remember that. Remember there was that video that Drake did where he took the money for the music video, and instead of using the money for the music video, he went and he gave people money, and then he filmed it, and that was the music video.
Right.
And in some ways you're like, okay, well, he still made the music video and he still used those people to publicize his music. So there is a little bit of like, yeah, he did end up doing this, but at the end of the day, I was like, but he gave all those people money that needed it. Do you know what I mean? And so there's always several ways to look at it, but my bottom line is, did something good happen? Did somebody benefit out of this that really needed it? And if that happened, then why do we care? Thank you so much, Joseph and Sanjay. That was very interesting and actually a great, good news story.
Hey everyone, this is Zoe Harveen Court. Listen to Ruckus Avenue Radio at dashradio.com and download the Dash Radio app for complete access 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to our station.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. This is Ismail Bashi. And with me in the studio right now is Joseph Shavit, Robert Stone, Sanjay Chandani, and Tony Von Hala. And we're actually going to talk about something really interesting right now. So Sanjay is going to talk to us about a subject which has been going on in the news for the last few years, but it's sort of caught a lot of attention and momentum at the present time. It has to do with economics. And I'm going to let Sanjay give a much better description than I am. So take it away, Sanjay.
Hey, guys. Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this, and it's been in the news whether we should raise the minimum wage. But if we raise the minimum wage, mom and pop owners of businesses, can't afford that. They'll have to go bankrupt. Or trickle down economics that give the tax breaks to the wealthy and let it just trickle down to the poor people. And that's been the conundrum, what to do about that the whole time. And then I came across this story of Dan Price. He's the CEO of Gravity Systems. It's an online credit processing system. And he was talking to a friend of his, this mom. She had a son, and she was telling him in the conversation, $70,000 would go a long way for her if she could rent a place easily. She was a single mom, and she could raise her son, and that would help her tremendously. So that got him thinking. And then he said, you know what? This was about 5 years ago. He was making $1 million in salary. He gave away 90% of his salary to his employees, and he made sure that anybody who came in, the floor was $70,000 to start. 5 years ago, everybody got at least $70,000 to start. And the business people in the news, especially Fox News, just ripped into him. It was, he's a socialist. He doesn't know what he's doing. How could he be a CEO? His employees are going to be on the breadline. He's going to be bankrupt. The company is going to be closed. And it went on and on. This was 5 years ago. But I won't tell you what the ending is. I just want to hear from you guys. What do you think about this whole conundrum, whether we should raise the minimum wage, whether we should just let the trickle down economics work? Or whatever thoughts you have. Anybody want to take a shot at this?
Well, wait a minute. So I do want to know how this ends. I mean, it was 5 years ago, and I kind of remember something about him giving away a bunch of his money, a big portion of his paycheck to his employees, and everybody was celebrating. I remember that. And I heard recently that he was lambasted. So how does it end? You're not going to tell us?
I'm going to tell you, but I want to hear I want to build a suspense, because I don't want to give the ending away, but I just want to hear anybody else. That's a great point, Tony. But
well, it was a big technology company, right?
Yeah, it's an online credit processing company.
Online credit processing. So what do they do?
They do the payments. So if you do a transaction, they collect payments and.
Okay. So it's, it's involved with technology. So these people, they have to have some formal basis of understanding of how to handle computers and computer technology. They've had some form of education.
Yes and no. Because 70,000, even for the entry-level person answering the phones coming in.
So, one of the things, Sanjay, you and I talked about this in the past, one of the interesting things I think the listeners would like to know is that, for any CEO, especially a CEO in a Fortune 1000 company, I'm sure Gravity at that point, when he made this announcement was certainly a profitable organization and certainly had a lot of money. But as a CEO in a firm like that, and certainly up to the Fortune 100 companies, a large percentage, almost 90 to almost 95% of a CEO's compensation actually comes out of equity from stock that the company gives to them on an annualized basis, whether it's just outright grants to them or whether it's an employee stock purchasing plan of some form where it's heavily discounted off of what that equity would be available on the street. And so you'll see it's not uncommon for CEOs at his level and companies of his size or larger for them to be making $10, $15 million a year, in his case, $1 million a year, but they may be making 10x that amount every year in their stock values, either going up or the fact that they're getting a bunch of stock coming in. So, as I listened to this story and as I remember reading it, the hook for me wasn't necessarily that he was giving away 90% of his base salary. It was that he wasn't just giving it away randomly to some charity saying, hey, look at me, virtue me, in terms of signaling. He was giving it back to the employees and saying, and really taking them back to a world where you're putting in 10, 12 hours a day into this company to help make it a success. You should be able to live a middle-class lifestyle. It doesn't matter if you're a receptionist at the front desk or you're a coder somewhere else. You're still putting in the same amount of time. You still have kids, you still have family. How do you get it, to go?
Well, sure, if I may add, here's the thing. Let's first be very clear about a couple of things. So the $1 million that he gave out of his base salary, like people are going to start, because I'm sure we'll get questions. People are going to start doing the math and they're saying, well, how many employees were they? Even if you minus, because he gave it to, I think, 120 employees. So he only gave
90% of it.
Right. He gave 90%. So say he gave 900,000, but it's not that he gave them all 70,000. He gave them enough to make their present income to reach 70,000. Just so that if anybody's correcting and verifying our math, I wanted to make sure that we had that fact right.
Absolutely, and that's why I mentioned the front receptionist, the more blue collar workers within the organization that might be making
Say somebody was making say somebody was making, for an example, say $30,000 a year, so he added the 40 onto that, from his own thing. But I think to answer your expand on your point, the fact is, sure, a lot of CEOs may only take I know CEOs, we've heard of CEOs who take $1, as their base salary, because that's not where their real money comes from. But even if a CEO, say, got $1 million base salary, and how many of them actually donated to, like you said, they put it back in the people who helped build that company. And that, I think, is noteworthy. And Sanjay,
he may have given that in that first year, that 90%, but I think he maintained that 70,000 minimum starting.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think Tony was saying something.
To get in on something here.
Yeah.
Well, just to Joseph's point, they make money on the back end, or they make money through the company, not just on the base salary. So is there anything that's disingenuous about this? Is he making a shit ton of money on the back end so that, he's not actually donating all that much? I mean, he's giving all these people raises, but he's still making plenty of money, not just off the base salary, but through what, Joseph?
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's sort of where I was trying to get at with my point, is that, look, I don't think the story, in 20 years and 30 years, as we're studying the story at MIT Business School or Harvard Business School, it's not about, the fact that he forewent his base salary. That's not really the lesson to be learned here. I think the lesson to be learned is specifically that he made the decision that a living middle-class wage was critical for the success of his company, for every one of his employees to have, irrespective of how it's funded. The idea that now anybody who's putting in the time that's contributing to the overall success, irrespective of how long you've been there, it's not like you've had to be there for 5 years before you hit a minimum threshold. It's fresh off the street. You're coming in. I want you to be successful in your home life because I know that's going to make you successful at the office. So I'm going to guarantee you a salary level that in today's world and in the location where we reside, our company exists, you can live comfortably at. And clearly the figure of $70,000 was one that resonated with him earlier, but also resonates within that market. $70,000 in LA is still not middle class. But that doesn't do anything for you. So that's the learning lesson here, at least for people to consider. Now, whether it spins into being something that's...
No, I think we're missing the point here a little bit. I think this was an experiment that he did. And what happened is, so his company 5 years ago was making $3 billion in revenue, has gone in 5 years later, because of this, has gone to $10 billion. They bought another company in Iowa right now.
Wow.
And he's turned this. It's not whether he's making extra on the other end. He looked out for his employees. They doubled the revenue. Plus, this is the most bigger picture thing that I think Joseph touched upon about the middle class. What has happened is his employees have been able to tenfold have been able to buy houses. They've been able to contribute to the economy, and that has generated even more revenue for other people.
What's the problem with it? Well, then what's the problem? Then why shouldn't we do this then?
I think as Sanjay,
they're studying this thing now. It's part of Harvard Business School. That I think Joseph had brought up the thing about universal basic income. This is somewhere in that range where they're thinking of going. So he was trying to experiment with this, and it worked fabulously.
So what's the argument against it?
The argument against it is that a lot of people on different sides of the aisle call it a socialist experiment. And they try to in this country, there's always that fear. Once you start giving out or helping or reinvesting in your own people or in your own economy, it's not a handout, but people like to label things. If you reinvest in people, you reinvest in human beings, people call it socialism.
I take it a slightly different tact, although I absolutely agree with what you just said, Ishmael. I think the argument against it would come from business owners who aren't in the fintech industry, which is the financial technology industry. There are other stories, Sanjay, you and I talked about this in the past as well. There are other stories of companies that have had CEOs who've added profit sharing to their employees at all levels. And then the next thing you know, they become $2 billion companies. And all of a sudden, somebody who might be a receptionist is now a millionaire because they've shared in that step up and that growth. This is sort of a related story to what we're talking about here, because in both of those stories, what you see is that there's high profits and there's high net margins in this company and in this sector. And if you become successful, those high net margins generate an awful lot of net profit. And whether that net profit goes into the pocket of the CEO, whether it gets diverted into, shareholder wealth and equity, traditionally, it would absolutely not find its way down to the employees. Yeah, they'd get their standard 5%, 10% raise because business is good. Maybe they would have an opportunity to stock purchase depending on the organization and how they do it. But the general net is they'd still be starting off at $35,000 a year.
But what I feel the brilliance of this story is they told him that his employees were going to be on the breadline and he was going to go bankrupt. And 6 years later, he's proved that. Starbucks and Costco pay way above minimum wage, and they're the top 2 successful companies.
Well, that's one of the common connections there. It's an interesting fact you brought up that Starbucks, Costco, and Gravity. Gravity also is based in Ballard, Seattle, Washington. And ironically, or interestingly enough, Dan Price went to Seattle Pacific University. So I don't know, maybe there's some magic in the Pacific Northwest. Maybe they understand the economics and how if you do well by your people, it comes back to you tenfold. It's an old Sanskrit or saying, I think, or maybe I'm making it up. I don't know. But either way, they say it's all about karma. Though, you put good out in the world and it comes back tenfold to you. I think it literally is, I don't know if you call it trickle back economics, but it's what you put out good, you get good back tenfold.
Ismail, you coined a new term, trickle back.
Oh, did I say trickle back, trickle down?
No, but actually trickle back is much better because trickle down is coming from the top down. Yeah. Either way, it works.
You know what I meant.
I know. No, it's great. I love it.
You know what? I'm copywriting that. Trickle back.
Yes.
Do it.
He's getting tattooed right now.
Yeah. On my back. Trickle back.
On his back. But this is a really interesting conversation, Sanjay. And I think that, our listeners are going to have an awful lot to say about it. We'd love to hear about it. So,
thank you for listening to The Brighter Side of News. I, again, am Rizwan Manji. Thank you to Tony Vanhala, Ismail Bashi, Joseph Shavit, and Sanjay Chandani for joining me today. And if you liked what you heard, then please tune in again.